Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce General Cooley.
What an exciting day for the 711th Human Performance Wing and for the Air Force Research Laboratory. This is really an opportunity for us to pause and reflect on General Koeniger's time in the seat. He's been here for 3 years. When he got here, he probably had no idea what he was getting into, how long it was going to last, and some of the challenges that they were going to go through, and I'm going to recount some of those things. But this is a great opportunity to reflect on that and to introduce, my opportunity to introduce the incoming commander in General Dienst. And he's just moving in the neighborhood and we're getting to know him and very excited about that. But let me start off by saying, first of all, thank you to the families, especially Joe. His wife has stayed in the DC area at this time, so they've done that geographic bachelor thing, and again, going back to that time frame, you never know how long it's going to be, and so lots of frequent flyer miles between here and DCA, I imagine, and so this is an opportunity for him to get back to DC in another challenging job, but at least he'll be able to come home at night. So Joe, thank you for loaning him to us for 3 long years, and your son Marcus for being here. I appreciate that. Thank you, Ralph and Charlotte, for coming up from, let me try and stand out. From Pensacola. We had a little short opportunity. Ralph is 2 years younger, and so General Koeniger, Mark, was always the older brother and kind of set the stage. And I always like to go back and reflect on those childhood years because those formative years really give us insight into who we're dealing with. And I think we all learned vicariously through those stories. So Ralph added, he confirmed what I think most people already know, and we'll get into that. And welcome. Welcome not just to the command, but welcome as neighbors to Judy and Heidi. They're going to be living right across the street from us, so we're going to be able to keep a close eye on none of those late night parties and everything. But thank you for coming in, and they're living in Boxland and getting settled in. I also want to say thank you to the leadership across the 711th and Air Force Research Lab for being here. Prior leaders, Mr. Tom Wells, good to see you here, sir. And in particular, our community leaders. 711th is, we employ a lot of folks in the community, and we bring a whole bunch of young airmen through the 711th and USAF SAM. And so you all help to make sure that they go away appreciating what a wonderful community this is. So thanks for coming out today. So what I hope to do is spend a little bit of time and talk about General Koeniger. I do like to reflect back on the earlier years because it gives us great insight, and then and sort of recount a little bit of his career, but then focus on what was accomplished in the past 3 years. There's really been some important things that have happened in these 3 years. As we were recounting just ahead of this, both he and I, it's been a little bit of a turbulent time for our organization, and but I really think that we're turning the corner, and General Koeniger has done just a terrific job, and I'm going to recount some of that. Then I'm going to spend some time introducing General Dienst and giving you an idea, based on some of those early years, who it is that's coming in for command. So I always like to start, not just when Mark was born, but the parents, because that can be such an important factor. Mark's father immigrated from Germany in 1951 through Ellis Island. And his mother also immigrated from the Sudetenland in 1957. And so they both came over here and make their way in the United States. Well, his father ended up in New York, and upstate New York and Rochester, and then Iowa, and eventually in New Orleans, which is really where Mark and Ralph grew up. Excuse me. And he made his way making contact lenses, interestingly. So this was in the very early days of contact lenses, and he had a particular skill, and in fact their father had a number of patents on making contact lenses. Interestingly, both of them ended up making, you work in Dad's shop, right? So you make contact lenses. Just an interesting side note, I'm going to get ahead of myself. Guess what? General Dienst also made contact lenses growing up. So I'm not sure what that says about the two of you. Don't know if you even knew that, but that was what formed the beginnings of General Koeniger's life. So, obviously he was successful in school and doing all the right things, went off to the Air Force Academy, and he wanted to do one or two things. It was sort of an and/or. He wanted to fly, and he wanted to go to medical school and be a doctor. So he kind of went to the Air Force Academy saying, okay, I'm going to do one of these things. Well, he had his eyesight wasn't perfect, and so he had some medical issues that kept coming up. And I'm not sure what happened in those first 2 years, but his grades weren't great. It's highly competitive at the academy to get those very limited number of medical slots. So he did a calculus at the 2-year point and said, you know what, I don't think they're going to let me do either of the things I want to do, so I'm going to take a third option. And so he transferred to LSU and went to Louisiana State and completed there in 3 years and after transferring. But still wanted to do the same thing. Still wanted to fly, still wanted to go to medical school. Persistence. This man did not give up on that. So he went to the Air Force again to go to OTS. They wouldn't let him in. You're too tall. Your sitting height is too high, right? Your eyesight isn't good enough. And there was some other reason that the OTS kept turning him down. Well, he was a dog with a bone. He was after that, and eventually convinced them to let him in to go fly. Because of his eyesight, they let him in as a navigator. So he entered the Air Force in 1985, or 1984. Yeah, he was in 1984, but you didn't pop out until 1985 because getting into OTS and the classes and all those kinds of things. So, that's right, in 84, so for 4 years, he was a navigator flying AWACS missions over Saudi Arabia, and at that time we were, really all over the world. So when you see General Koeniger, normally you look at doctors and, in terms of looking at all the ribbons that they have and all that kind of stuff, you go, wait a minute, he's a doc? Right? So let me just give you some context. I had the staff look at this. Our 4-star commanding general, okay, General Bunch, has 4 rows of ribbons, okay, 4, okay. General Dienst has 5 rows of ribbons, okay. I have 7. I'm a little bit of an anomaly in terms of serving overseas and doing a variety of things. General Koeniger has 13 rows of ribbons. He didn't know I was going to talk about that, right? But that was, to a large degree, doing the operational stuff. He was all over the place in that time period. Well, so he got to fly. He still had this hankering to go to medical school. And so while on the AWACS flying around, he's studying for the MCAT. So he studies for the MCAT and does well enough and gets accepted. So he only spends 4 years as a navigator. So in '88, he goes off. We send him off to go to the USAF, the medical school for the military. And so that kind of set the trajectory of his career. But while he was at residency, he was doing a residency at Eglin. So he's not married at this time, or he's head down, persistent, going after med school and that kind of thing. Well, he meets this apparently very cute young lady and decides that he's going to ask her out. So he does, gets summarily turned down, asks again, same result. A third time, not doing it. And so finally, he just confronts Joe and says, look, what is going on? And Joe was pushing drugs. She was a pharmaceutical representative. I'm sorry. She was pushing drugs. Yeah, that's right. When it was, yeah. Well, again, there's some persistence in this man. He was not going to take no for an answer. And so they, shortly after that, ended up dating and getting married. So then his career, you know, it's in the bio, you know, he did a whole bunch of assignments in terms of as a family doc and doing the medical kinds of things, building up those, as well as command. And all the way up until he was selected for general and then came to be the commander of the 711th Human Performance Wing. And I just want to hit on, there's 5 things that I want to highlight as particularly noteworthy of contributions that General Koeniger has made since he's here. The first is, in my mind, probably the most important, and that is the 711th is, or still is, a pretty young organization, right? It was only stood up under Tom Wells. Let's see, it was 2008? 2008, part of BRAC 2005, and we closed down the San Antonio and meshed things here. So the first director was Mr. Wells, and then General Jacks, and then General Koeniger. And so it's a young organization that had these sort of different things that were mashed together and said, okay, you're an organization. And so it made sense, but it's hard to gel. And Mark recognized that, and he set forth to put in place a strategic vision that was going to drive the organization together and get on the same page. And so, you know, he put in place the sort of the 3 objectives that sort of drive the organization: maximize airman availability, maximize airman availability, optimize resources, and enhance airman performance. I knew I was going to get a lifeline, so that just goes to show you, right? Although he may have been a plant, so. But those 3 things are universal across the 711th and really drive the organization together. And he's done a remarkable job of doing that strategic planning and visioning to drive the organization under that banner. But it wasn't all about visioning and strategic. Real world things happen, and the 711th is the place that's going to solve the problem. And I'm going to just think somewhat chronologically. First thing that I was aware of was this UPE issue, this unexplained physiological events. Pilots are flying around in training, and they get woozy or dizzy or whatever, and then they land and they say, hey, there's something going on. We think it's the system. The OBOG, the system that provides oxygen, because we had another issue when Mr. Wells was here. We sorted through that on the F-22, the OBOG system. And so, but we didn't know what was going on, and it was intermittent and interspersed. Well, this was being debated on the Hill and at the halls of, you know, the Pentagon. All the senior leadership were getting asked questions in testimony. What are you doing about this? You're putting our pilots in jeopardy. Well, the experts in this are in the 711th, and they came to this organization to help sort that out, and we got a lot of help. We got a lot of help and a lot of visitors, but the team that Mark was leading, and it clearly was a team, rose to the challenge and answered the mail. So that was kind of the second big thing. The third one that comes to mind is more about the organization and how we manage science and technology. And I think with Dr. Geis and the team of saying, look, there's 2 different pots of money that 711th has. Some of it is from the health agency side, and some of it is from the line, if you will, to do research and development. And they were managed very differently and sort of off in different directions. And the team said, look, we've got to sort this out. And Mark, I think, was instrumental in saying, yep, that's the right thing to do. Let's go let's go figure that out. And I think that, even though it's just been implemented within the last several months or whatever, I definitely think it's the right thing to do, and we're off on good footing to do that much better. In terms of real world things, if you recall, about 2 years ago, we were, I hesitate to say close to a conflict, but it was not clear if we were going to end up in a conflict on the Korean Peninsula. And as a result, readiness got a lot of attention. Well, what happens if we actually got into a conflict, a shooting match over there? And many people probably lots of people in this room have been to Korea, and you know that there's, huge number of artillery within Seoul, and it would be a very, very challenging potential conflict with a lot of casualties. And so the spotlight was again on the medical community. Are you ready? Do we have the folks trained and ready if we ended up getting into a conflict? Well, guess what? The answer was sort of no. We didn't have anywhere near the number of people trained and ready to go. And so, the training that we do at USAF SAM to get those aeromedical specialists trained up, all the docs, nurses, and technicians that are flying in the back of aircraft and taking care of wounded were pretty small numbers, and they weren't current. And so there was a huge surge to train those folks, and that landed right in the 7-Eleven's lap to sort that out. And I think that the entire team, led by General Koeniger, stepped up and definitely delivered to say, yeah, we're ready. We have the medical teams ready to go. I was going to look at there was one other one I wanted. Oh, of course, the KC-46. So we just bought a tanker. We just bought a brand new tanker from Boeing. Lot of debate, lot of drama going through that. And we get it. It turns out the visioning system doesn't work quite right. And the guys that actually do the tanking can't use the system very well. And then we get into because it's a fixed price contract with Boeing, we get into a argument, I'll just say, a discussion with Boeing as to who's going to fix this and how and what was needed and what's good enough, right? Well, in this particular case, it's actually quite interesting because this is a great example of where the Air Force Research Laboratory, the 7-Eleventh, and the subject matter experts that we have came to the rescue, because we rolled in the subject matter experts on visioning and being able to sort of do in 3D, depending on where the eyesight was or where the cameras were and those kinds of things. We had experts that far exceeded anything Boeing had, and they had no chance. They had to fold, and it's like, okay, they had to listen to us and say, okay, got it, we're going to do what you guys say, and the expert teams. But again, this is at the Secretary of the Air Force level. We're getting questions from the Hill and Congress and in the press and all of those kind of things, and attention from the MAGCOMs. Huge amount of pressure to deliver, and it was the 7-Eleventh that stepped up and solved that problem. And so those in 3 years, there's dozens and dozens of other things that happen, but those are the top 5 that come to my mind. And so I think it's worth at this time sort of reflecting back at, yeah, those were a lot of major challenges at the most strategic level in our government, that 7-Eleven stepped up and led the charge and solved some really difficult problems. So these things are a team sport, and I think maybe the most important thing that General Koeniger is leaving as he moves on to this next assignment is the team and the professionalism and the culture that have been put in place across 7-Eleven to bring this very large organization, some 2,000 folks doing all sorts of different missions, bring it together as a team. And so, General Koeniger, I want to say on behalf of the Air Force Research Laboratory and the men and women of the 7-Eleven, thank you for your leadership. You've done just a phenomenal job. So we'll get him up here in a minute. He'll have his say, but let me talk a little bit about your incoming commander. So General Dienst, I just have been getting to know him a little bit as neighbors. He grew up in Kansas, and in a very small town in Kansas, and then around Wichita. His graduating class was 25. Okay, so just to calibrate, right? It was pretty small. But he was out there in farm country. And so when you're growing up in farm country, what do? Well, you work on farms. You get to know farmers. And guess what? It's hard work. I lived, when I was growing up, I lived up in sort of northeast Kansas. He was in southeast Kansas. So I can relate to that. Going out and it's a challenge, and you get a work ethic. But his father was an optometrist. And so his father and his uncle were both in the business of making eyeglasses and then getting into contact lenses. So like I said, he made eyeglasses growing up. That's what he did, helping out Dad. And in addition to all the work ethic that you get from farming. But General Dienst was a little different. He went to high school, college there in Emporia, Kansas. Got his doctorate in ophthalmology at the University of Houston. So he was sort of on the same track, following his dad in optometry. Came back, spent 5 years in private practice, supporting his father being an optometrist. And then the first Gulf War happened in 1991. And he's watching that, and it's like, maybe there's some other things that he ought to be doing and serving. So that started him on a process of engaging with the Air Force Reserves and getting in, and he finds himself, gets into the Air Force Reserves as a BSC, the Biomedical or Sciences Corps, and in 95 comes active duty. And from there, does what we do with optometrists, starts serving in various medical posts around the Air Force. And in 2005, so just 6 years after doing this, he kind of gets pulled into the readiness world and kind of spent the rest of his year. So if you want a prescription for eyeglasses, I recommend you not go to General Dienst, okay? Because he hasn't done it for, 17 years now. But he's had lots of commands and engaged in planning and readiness and all the challenges. And I think that that culminated in his last job as the commander of the Air Force Medical Operations Agency, AFMOA, down in San Antonio. Responsible, as you probably saw in the bio, for all of those medical facilities around the Air Force, every single one of them, all of the medical services were managed through that agency. So I can just imagine a few headaches coming through there and challenges and fighting the resource battles and all those kinds of things. But he has a very good understanding of the readiness, and he also spent some time at the Defense Health Agency, which is sort of taking some of those mission responsibilities over. So he has a very good understanding of the joint world and the partners who are going to be responsible for this. So General Dienst has an excellent record of command and the staff type jobs that give him insight into the challenges that we face as the organization moves forward. The big organization of the Air Force medical community moves forward. I also like to share some personal things, just to give all the folks who are wondering who's coming in here. General Dienst and Judy have 5 children. 4 of them are out and married and scattered all over mostly the East Coast, North Carolina and whatnot, and enjoy outdoors and those kinds of things. But I also found out that General Dienst is an oil painter. So I'm looking forward to seeing some oil paintings in your office as well as your house when we're wandering around the neighborhood. So he's excited to get here, and it's a great opportunity. You have the right leader at the right time to come in here and lead the 711th to the next level. And so with that, let me turn it over to your parting commander, General Mark Honegger. Sir.
Thanks, sir.
Appreciate it. Yep.
Okay, I have some notes because my memory is not nearly as good as General Cooley's. You know, these types of events are not easy to plan. There's a lot of moving pieces that go on, and so what I'd like to do up front is to recognize some people who have put in a lot of work to pull this all together. So the project officer, Captain Jen Wedlin, Ms. Paula Butler, Mr. Shane Frazier, Staff Sergeant Katie Longbreak, Tech Sergeant Allison Soper, Master Sergeant Ashley Fuquay, and Ms. Karen Pinnell. Also, thanks to Chaplain Kilala and the Band of Flight. Please join me in a round of applause. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Human Performance Wing, thank you very much for coming. You know, it's hard to believe that I've actually been here for 3 years. The time really has flown by. I remember when I arrived, I was thinking that, wow, I don't really have, as a family practice doc, flight surgeon, I don't really have a research background, and I wasn't quite sure how things were going to go here. But, you know, then I met Tim and Janet, and they did a lot of hand-holding up front the first few months, making sure that I didn't do anything head off in the wrong direction. You know, there were times that they'd knock on the door and they'd come in and they'd say, "Now, Mark," well, maybe they said General, but, you know, they would say, "You might want to consider," you know, and I learned very quickly to trust their advice. Thank you both. They have since moved on from the wing to other jobs where their talents were needed. And you notice that I said they moved on to other jobs. I didn't say they moved on to better jobs. So in all seriousness, though, thank you both for everything that you did during the 2 years that we worked together. You provided lots of good advice for me in terms of trying to decide in some very difficult circumstances what we would do going forward. To Daryl and Michael, you two really haven't missed a beat in stepping in and filling their shoes and, again, helping me navigate the wing. You are going to be two great assets to help General Dienst as he takes the helm to move the wing forward. So thank you for the advice that you have given me as well, and for being willing to step up into those positions. As you have both found out, it takes a lot of time and effort because there are a lot of things that the wing is involved in. When I first arrived, actually it was probably before I arrived, I asked for a whiteboard and a large pad of paper in my office. The staff, particularly the plans and programs, Michael Stropke and Todd Nelson, Jennifer Sears, just to name a few people, quickly figured out that I'd spend the weekend scribbling on the board and the paper, and then Monday morning, I'd say, "Hey, do you guys have a few minutes to come in?" And it was never just a few minutes. And again, those folks typically walked out with a list of things to go do. But thank you to you all, but thanks to the entire plans and programs team for being patient with me and for helping the leadership team of the 711th work through a lot of challenging issues as General Cooley outlined just a few minutes ago. So when I came here, I was excited to learn about the research enterprise. Not my background, but I heard stories about all the cool stuff that the 711th was doing. It didn't take long for me to learn that there really was a lot for me to pick up on, and to learn how research was done in the Air Force, how research was done within the Human Performance Wing. The Chief Scientist's Office was actually crucial to make sure that I didn't break anything in that domain. So Rajesh, David, Nancy, Julia, Nicole, and Tammy all helped keep me on track. They helped plan and execute the merger of the two research enterprises within the 711th into one research enterprise. There was consternation and heartache that occurred during that time because change is hard. But to the men and women affected by the move, thanks for your patience. Also, thank you to the FH and RH leadership team for planning and executing the move. We had a great ribbon-cutting ceremony last month. 3 other people I relied heavily on were Dr. Kevin Geis, Colonel Alden Hilton, and Colonel Phil Preen. As I mentioned earlier, I had no background in research, so I really counted on Kevin's advice in this area. It didn't take long for me to realize Kevin's deep expertise and strong leadership skills would allow me to focus on other areas in the wing. Thanks. There is a tendency for people to spend time doing what they know best, and because of my background, Alden had to put up with me engaging a lot in USAF SAM, certainly an area that I felt comfortable with. SAM is a diverse and complex organization that has enough work to keep quite a few people busy. Alden, appreciate you allowing me to help you shape SAM going forward. And the final mission lead, Colonel Phil Preen, I actually poached him from the medical group a few years back. He definitely had his hands full with a couple of very high visibility programs, namely BOMC and HSI. I appreciate you getting your folks engaged on those 2 programs. And you know, when you took over BOMC, it was clear to the entire AFMS that your team was the right team to lead that. No organization can succeed without a solid front office team, and I can attest that the 711th has a great one. Over the past 3 years, we've been fortunate to have some sharp people rotate through. The current team of Matt Smith, Todd Overman, Ashley Fuquay, and recently retired Jay Colvin, and the newest addition, Patrice Earle, have continued to deconflict travel schedules, track new work, and stay on top of routine day-to-day work. It's been a hectic 3 years, but especially busy this last year since I picked up the medical corps chief duties, which just made things a little crazier. I appreciate your support. The 711th Human Performance Wing couldn't have accomplished all it did without a great deal of support from other organizations. First and foremost on that list is General Cooley and the AFRL front office. Again, the wing is a unique organization. In AFRL, you have a bunch of directorates and then the wing. And again, AFRL is focused on research. And so when DVs come to the wing, General Cooley was never shy about letting the folks know that there are medics within the wing and the role, the critical role that those medics played for the Air Force. General Cooley, thank you so much for always having our back. Let's see. Colonel Ryder, despite the unique relationship to your office, you and your staff have been great partners. Colonel Fauch, the 88th Med Group Commander, has supported the Human Performance Wing on numerous occasions, and I'm glad we've been able to reciprocate at times. And then finally, NAMRU-D. Although NAMRU is officially a separate organization, the interaction of the personnel is more like that of a single organization. Captain Hebert, Matt, appreciate all you and your team have done to foster that relationship, and I know that you all will continue to work very well with the Human Performance Wing. I appreciate your support of the wing. And again, you've got a great partner with the Navy. To the men and women of the 711th Human Performance Wing, a heartfelt thank you. Those two words just don't seem like enough based on all you have accomplished the past 3 years. I know I've asked a lot of all of you, and you've always delivered. People have at times complained about hosting DVs and that it takes them away from their primary duties and responsibilities. But those visits are important because people need to understand what you all do to support the airmen and the mission every day. The word definitely got out on the great work that you all do because DV visits actually ramped up fairly significantly over the past 3 years. The first 6 months I was here, we had 14 DV visits during that time, followed by 31 visits in 2017, 34 visits in 2018, and in the first 6 months of this year, we've already had 20 DVs. Those DVs included senators, congressmen, mayors, the SECAF, the chief of staff, the vice chief of staff, admirals, and a host of other people. And I can tell you that every single one of them left impressed by what you all do each and every day. That work is at least partially reflected in the awards that you win. In 2018, wing members won almost half of AFRL's quarterly awards and a quarter of the annual awards. 9 wing members were selected as MAJCOM Medical Award winners, and 1 was selected as an Air Force winner. We also did well in direct submit competitive awards where we had 5 AFRL winners and 1 winner at each of the following levels: AFMC, Air Force, DOD, National, and Federal. I could go on, but I don't want the ceremony to go into the evening. I am humbled to have been given the opportunity to lead this organization filled with so many dedicated airmen. Jim, you are taking over a wing filled with bright, dedicated people who care deeply about the mission because the mission is about airmen. It will take some time to get spun up, but you have a great team to help you through the transition. I don't have to tell you to have fun because there's no way that you won't. Best of luck. Now, before I close, I would be remiss if I didn't thank my family for putting up with the separations and long hours. To my brother Ralph and his wife Charlotte, they made a long drive from Pensacola just to be here for this ceremony. Appreciate you coming. My daughter Erica couldn't be here because she's doing an internship for a master's degree down in Houston. But I am blessed to have my son Marcus here as he's got some time off from school. Finally, to my wife Jo, what can I say? You've maintained your patience through 27 years of marriage to me and to the Air Force. You've endured 3 deployments totaling 18 months, 2 geo-separated assignments totaling 5 years, and countless TDYs. Through all of it, you've kept our family together. But now I'm coming home for good. I love you. Thank you all again for a wonderful assignment.
Thank you, General Cooley and General Koeniger, for your remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed with the change of command ceremony. Oh, you guys are ready for this. I don't even have to ask you to come. That's awesome. Awesome. Appreciate it. The passing of the colors symbolizes the passing of command and is done in a ceremony so all may witness the changing of leadership responsibilities. Brigadier General Koeniger will relinquish command of the 711th Human Performance Wing. Then Brigadier General Dienst will assume command of the 711th Human Performance Wing from Major General Cooley. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for rising for the change of command ceremony. Attention to order. Department of the Air Force. Brigadier General Mark A. Koeniger is relieved from duty as Commander, 711th Human Performance Wing, effective 21 June 2019. And Brigadier General James H. Dienst is assigned as Commander, 711th Human Performance Wing, effective 21 June 2019.
Sir, I relinquish command. Well done. Sir, I assume command.
Welcome. Officers, post. Well done. Well done.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. It is my pleasure to introduce Brigadier General James H. Dienst, Commander, 711th Human Performance Wing.
All right, well, first of all, I want to hand out some thanks. So thank you, General Cooley, for having the confidence in me to take this opportunity. I know you're part of the process for selection, so I think that, and thank you for your personal remarks. That was very touching, and our family appreciates it. Thank you, Mark, for all you've done here. Outstanding. I'll talk a little bit more here in just a minute, but while watching this organization from afar, outside in, I knew they had a great leader at the helm. I knew Tim Jex. I didn't know the first one, but I'll get to know him. But it's always off the charts impressive work that the wing's done here. And so I'm very much looking forward to being part of that. But thanks for handing off a great organization. We'll continue to do that and try to take it to the next level as all leaders try to do, and I appreciate it. So thanks. Senior officers in attendance, the team, the leadership team, Rob Marks, thanks for coming. And friends and family, see some friends out there, Roger and Peggy. And then there's probably some more. I'm sorry, I have a bad memory. So, but thanks for coming. The people who put this together, I just want to foot stomp that again. That's a lot of work. It started out months and months ago. Lots of details to Paul and the team and everybody. Thank you for the band. That was impressive as always. The chaplain, I could have taken your speech and used it as mine. I didn't think of it until just now. But thank you for that. Again, as like I said, I've been watching the organization from outside in, and as a senior leader bopping around the Air Force and DoD, one thing I always knew is that the 711th was just this rock star organization. They had a lot of things going on behind the scenes. Much of it's classified. Can't tell you what, we don't know kind of thing until you get here. But just from the pre-immersions that I've had, both down at the lab at Fort Sam and just up here, it is off the charts, I'm telling you. It's impressive. To the AFMC mission, I'll steal this from the thing, but leading the discovery, development, integration of warfighting capabilities to defend America, and I love this part, by unleashing the power of innovation of air and space technology. I mean, that's a bumper sticker I'm going to get. I mean, I tell you that, nothing says more than that. I love the idea of unleashing technology and innovation, letting people run free a bit, let the innovation, push the envelope, think without a box, all that kind of thing. It's all happening here at the 711. So I can't wait to be a part of that. The Human Performance Wings goals that Mark and others have established, I love it. Maximizing airman availability. You talk with the SecDef and teams like that, talking about enhancing lethality, deployment availability. All that stuff is the common lexicon we're hearing every day. How do we do that? How do we do that across the enterprise? Sounds easy, briefs easy, executes hard. But then how do we do that across the military health system too? Optimizing resources, General Goldfein, Secretary Mattis when he was in, all those alignments looking for efficiencies, zero-based budgets that we're living through, but to increase our capability, it's not more with less, it's doing better things with the same or less perhaps, but I think we're up to that challenge. So I love that as a goal, Mark. And enhancing airman performance, a lot there, human performance wing. What's the art of the possible? What's the technologies and this emergence of innovation across lots of different venues? How could we do that better? And that's the challenge that we all have. The thing that we'll put those together with, and so we talked a bit about that too, is what is the over-the-horizon future look like? We don't know, right? But how can we kind of say skate to where the puck's headed? Which might be popular up north here. I think hockey is more popular in San Antonio. But what does it look like? What does that look like? How do we get there? How do we meet the mission over the horizon? How do we know we're ready? General Raudebush at the SG, Air Force SG at one time when I was working directly for him at Air Staff, he used to talk in audiences, and I love this thing. He said he'd ask you, are you ready for today? And people said, yeah, hell yeah, we're ready for today. Yeah, got it, sir. But he said, the bigger question, are you ready for tomorrow? And what does tomorrow look like? And then everybody kind of looks at their shoes for a minute. And so that's the kind of thing we need to look at, and I will be very much a part of that and very honored to be part of the organization is looking at what is the art of the possible for over the horizon. How do we bring this all together as a team? I would say all these goals that we have here are in perfect alignment where we need to be headed, again, for over-the-horizon challenges. I've had the opportunity to travel around the world quite a bit, different jobs. As General Cooley said, you don't want me checking your eyes, I guess, even though I stay licensed in Texas. But no, I've had an incredible opportunity, been in warfighting planning. I met Phil Preen down at the CSAT when I was at Air War College in the Blue Horizons program, and we got to travel all over the place, and one of them was here, and I told my wife at the time, I said, man, you do not believe what's going on at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Afril. I was just blown off the charts, and when my wildest imagination, I never dreamed that I would actually probably could have a chance to be at the Human Performance Wing, so that's funny how things work out. But I do have a pretty good feel for the threats that are on the horizon for we face as a military health system. We talked about the Korean challenges, geographic limitations, same with Africa and these kind of things. What does that look like? What does the next medic need to look like? What does an airman need to perform at both, at levels, both in medics and non-medics? What does that look like? But I'll say I understand what other nations are developing and what challenges and what capabilities they bring to the fight. And I would say that there's no other organization like here at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, both in Afril and the 711th, which are together, that has the capability, the focus, the skilled professionals, the dedication resources to do what we are doing and what we must be doing. It's off the charts that what we're doing here. So I'm quick and brief on these things, so very proud to be here, part of this organization. The last things I want to say is thanks to my family. Judy and I were counting up on our car fingers and toes in the car how many moves we've had. This is our 15th move in 23 years, and it seems like it's is what normal people do in summers as they move, right? We didn't know what normal people do in the summer vacation. But last job we were there for about 11 months, but hope to get to settle in here a little bit more. But thanks to my wife and family, the kids, and most of them could make it here. But thanks, honey, I love you. And Heidi. Okay, well, thanks to the team. Look forward to knowing the kind of the front row here, getting to lead with you and be part of this world-class organization. Thanks.
Thank you, General Dienst. The men and women of the 711th Human Performance Wing are proud to have served with Brigadier General. We wish him and Charlotte good luck and Godspeed in your future endeavors. We also welcome Brigadier General Dienst and his spouse Judith to the 711th Human Performance Wing. Sir, we look forward to serving under your command. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand and join us in the singing of the first verse of the Air Force song. The words are printed on the back of your program. Upon the conclusion of the Air Force song, please stay in place for the departure of the official party and remain in place until the ushers release your row.